Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sherry Kennedy Brownrigg, station manager and host of Midday Classics for Classical 90.7 KVNO. So happy to be hosting this live stream today. And I have with me the man himself, Maestro Ankush Kumar Bahl. This is so fun because previously when we have talked to you, Maestro Bahl, it has been as a guest artist or someone who, you know, you're being announced and you're coming in eventually. But now this is it. This weekend is sort of your debut, not even sort of, it is your debut as the music director for the Omaha Symphony. So this is really great to have you on this live stream. So welcome.
Thank you. It's really happy to be here. And yeah, it's an exciting week for all of us for all sorts of different reasons. You know, being able to make live music in the concert hall, with an audience, we're getting closer to normalcy and it just feels so good.
And Dani Meier, of course. Dani is the Vice President of Artistic Administration and a bassist for the Symphony. I can't believe you're here because I know what you do and I know how busy you are. So it's great to have you here too.
I'm so happy to be here. I have never turned down a chance to talk in my entire life, especially not about classical music. So happy to be a part of this.
Well, I mean, that's good for all of us, isn't it? That you're here, we get to talk about it. But this is really exciting. So here's what's going to be happening. We're going to talk about this weekend's program and what you can expect. And we're also going to talk about maybe a little bit about the season. But we need your questions. So if you are with us and would like to comment or pose a question, let's get it. You can just do that right there in the chat. And so we'll hopefully get to it. But let's first talk about what people can expect for this weekend. And Maestro Bahl, we've already talked about the fact that this is, you know, your debut. You get to come out on stage at the Holland Performing Arts Center as the music director for the Omaha Symphony, which I have to say myself, I feel the excitement right now. What will audiences, what will they experience this weekend?
You know, we're excited to present like a tale of two halves. It feels like on the one hand, we're having an absolute masterwork in Beethoven 7 being performed by a fantastic orchestra in your Omaha Symphony, your local homegrown, awesome Omaha Symphony at the Holland Center, which is also just one of the nation's most fantastic halls, acoustically and otherwise. So, you know, that's something that we all bring something to that table. Like these musicians have trained all over the world, but have chosen Omaha as their home to make music with these people in this orchestra, sometimes for decades. And I'm just one member of that team and family. And I really feel fortunate to be part of such a killer family, such great musicians. And we're going to just do a brutally amazing Beethoven 7. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, we're already there and we still have another dress rehearsal tonight. And there's just so much more to do and explore in this piece. And then we get to do it 3 times with each other. So, you know, I definitely want to highlight to everyone watching, if they're not able to come into the concert hall on a Friday or a Saturday night, we are offering this program on Sunday afternoon as it would have been on a Friday or a Saturday. But then we have the first half, which we're excited about. We're going to do a piece by America's most loved, beloved, and famous living American composer in John Adams. We're going to do a piece of his that's become total standard repertoire in the Chairman dances. We have a little surprise before that, which Dani will talk about. And then we have fabulous guest stars. And I know we're going to talk more about Aaron, but we're going to play a Gershwin piano and orchestra piece called his second Rhapsody. And it's a piece that's very rarely performed, but it's so wonderful and so luscious. And it really harkens back to the heyday of like Gershwin performing all of the jazz pieces he worked on, and just, you can imagine him at the piano just going to town. So instead we have Aaron, who's a wonderful approximation of Gershwin, because he also grew up in the jazz arena, equally well trained in jazz and classical piano.
You know, speaking with Aaron Deal, I had a chance to talk to him last week. He has that cool jazz factor. I noticed, doesn't he, Dani? He's just great.
He does, and he was really, you know, every artist comes with a unique list of repertoire that they have under their fingers, and I would say that when Maestro and I looked at Aaron's list, that was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. I mean, he had Gottschalk on there, he had Morton Gould, he had Gershwin, he had William Grant Still, he had Florence Price. He had this extraordinarily, I had just so many pieces we'd never heard before. And so it's like being a kid in a candy store. You get to hear a Gershwin that no one's ever heard. As far as, we haven't played it at least in decades, if ever. We get to play this William Grant Still Out of the Silence, which is so like crystalline and transparent and gorgeous and also very thoughtful and poignant. We get to introduce audiences to people they don't know but should know and love, and pieces they don't know but should know and love. And that's a great first half. I am just like over the moon about it.
Over the moon. Well, I'm just hearing about it. I'm sorry, Maestro Bahl, you were going to mention something. I talked right over you.
No, I'm good.
Okay, you're good. All right. But yeah, that's what I look at too, as someone who is coming. KVNO is doing the live broadcast on Sunday afternoon at 2. But as someone who is just, I'm just in the audience and I can't wait to see the symphony perform. What a program. I mean, the pairing of it. I can just see the two of you getting together, with all the other folks at the symphony and looking at all these different things. What do you think that this, represents in terms of what it really, experiences across the whole breadth? I mean, you've got so many different genres here. The heavyweight of Beethoven Beethoven's Seventh, but also all these other great pieces that, as you mentioned, Dani, some people probably haven't even heard yet.
I know how I feel about it. I'm curious to see, Maestro, what you're going to say, because I have one word that's a through line, and it was really important to you when we were tossing ideas out, and that word was joy. We wanted it to feel like it was a joy to be back in the concert hall to start off the season.
I think that's absolutely right. And it also, we want to welcome people back into the concert hall. It's something we haven't been used to for many, many, many months. And so, I think that was a great, we were tossing around lots of different pieces, and it was like, well, that's not joyous enough. That's not going to make everyone smile and dance in the aisles. So we need that to be part of part of this opening of our 101st century of music making. The Omaha Symphony turns 101 this year, or turned 100 recently. So we're in our 101st season. And I wanted to start off with, what will be a composer that people will be listening to on our 200th anniversary, and that's John Adams.
Yeah.
And just because you haven't heard him yet, you will under my tenure. And he's just a fantastic living composer. I think Dani and I talked a lot about this concert representing a lot of my tenure, just taking nuggets out of what I want to accomplish while I'm the music director, as what I want to accomplish together with the orchestra as music director. And that's just really doing the masterworks at the highest level, and also introducing audiences to wonderful, beloved pieces that they may not know. And also introducing the audience to fantastic guest artists that they may not know. And, we are looking for the next Yo-Yo Ma. We're looking for the next great American artist. And I think we're in a position at the Omaha Symphony to bring a lot of those people in, and showcase them so they hopefully get to that next level and are just in the ether of like, these are great American artists, because there are so many great American artists, and we are happy to highlight all of them. As many as we can. Sorry, not all of them. I don't want to start taking email. I just filled Dani's email inbox. Sorry about that.
You'll have a concert every weekend if that happens, right?
I mean, that's fine with me, but I hear that that's frowned upon, messing with the budget this late, this far into things.
Oh, it's only money, Dani, right?
Only money.
That's right. Well, let's talk about the individual works that will be featured at this program. First of all, John Adams and the Chairman Dances. Talk a little bit about what's the background of that work and what can people expect when they're listening? And don't be surprised if people do get up and dance in the aisles.
It's the goal. Well, it's a piece he calls an outtake from his opera Nixon in China. And it's not very revealing because what does that even mean? So we asked the man himself. I don't know if we're going to tell the audience, but the audience for us today is getting a little sneak preview of tomorrow night. in which I actually was able to get on a Zoom call with John and talk to him about this piece, which I've known for decades. I've played before several times and I've conducted several times, but I still had a ton of questions about it. And can you imagine having Beethoven in the room with you asking about this piece? And he was game. He answered all my questions. He was perfectly lovely and really described the piece in a way that I was so excited to be the recipient of, because I had him there, and I wouldn't let me get him off microphone until I answered all my questions. And he was lovely. He could not be lovelier. And one of the things he answered was where is the context of this piece in relation to Nixon and China? And the actual story of it is that he had to get a commission. He was asked to do a commission by the Milwaukee Symphony, and he kind of lingered on not too long, and he realized that he had to finish that first before he could really tackle the full opera of Nixon in China. So he tried to maybe kill two birds with one stone. He had already met with Peter Sellers, the director, and the choreographer, and the art designer, set designer, and so he had an idea of what they were going to achieve at Nixon in China. And they had created a couple of different scenes, spitballed a couple of scenes and what the opera would look like with the librettist and whatnot. And this was one of them. It's a scene where this fictitious dinner they're having that Nixon is being invited to by the Great Chinese Banquet, and then Mao's wife, Madame Mao, kind of wedding crashers that banquet, starts putting lanterns up and around, just dancing, bumping into waiters, kind of just like reliving her previous life as a Chinese Hollywood movie actress. And it's just this hallucinogenic scene that he sets that I just think is harmonically brilliant, rhythmically amazing. There's so many colors in it. It's just a palette of beautiful, beautiful music. It's a little bit episodic. You have this scene, and this scene, and this scene, and this scene. And then he explains how it zooms out at the end of all of these different foxtrots and dances. It zooms out to actually imagining Nixon himself playing the piano. There's a little outro of the music where he's just kind of like doing the foxtrot at the piano. And John imagined Nixon being the pianist. And he commented, like, wouldn't it be lovely if our American presidents would be such wonderful musicians and have had piano lessons growing up? Wouldn't that change so much, just to have that perspective with arts and with arts funding and things like that, and NEA and whatnot. So it's actually, and when that piano music starts going back and forth, you kind of zoom out and you realize that this has been like a lucid dream of all this stuff, and you're actually sitting in your chair. You have just fallen asleep and are now waking up to this record being played on a gramophone, an old school gramophone that you have to wind up. So what you're hearing at the end of the piece is that needle coming off of the vinyl into that paper and then hitting the spindle in the middle, slowing down, and now you're awake. So it's really it's the coolest visual I can imagine ending a piece with. And you'll hear him exactly tell this story tomorrow night.
Wow, that is really exciting. I want to mention for anyone who's just joined us, we love your questions. If you have questions for Dani and Maestro Bahl, or just comments, please feel free to enter those, and we'd be happy to get those to you as soon as we can. Let's move on to the next work that is scheduled for the program, and that's the second Rhapsody from Gershwin. This is real. I'm super excited about this one too, because, I haven't heard it. You mentioned already, Maestro, that it's not often that it's performed.
Yeah, absolutely. I had never heard it. Like Dani said, it's one of those things that we saw on the list. We're like, oh, wait, there's a second Rhapsody for piano and orchestra? Oops, maybe I should have known that. I don't know.
Dani, had you heard it before?
No, I had no idea it existed. And in fact, as Aaron probably mentioned, it went through so many different iterations. Originally for this movie, Delicious, trying out seemed like 1,000 different names, trying to find the exact right fit. And finally he was like, all right, keep it simple, second Rhapsody. And so it's this, they kind of cut it down into, what would you say, like an 18 minute or so concerto, but it still feels like a concerto. It's still got fast, slow, fast. It's got everything that you love about Gershwin. It's got, you're going to end up like walking away humming themes from it, because you just really can't help it. It's almost extraordinary that we haven't heard it before, but I think it takes artists like Aaron who decide that they're going to champion these pieces, and then they get it slowly worked back into the repertoire.
Well, I understand too that the movie Delicious is really hard to find. I mean, it's almost impossible to find it and to watch it. So, you know, you might see the music in there, but since that is the case, it probably just went into that little obscure shelf, you know, somewhere. And yeah, you're right. Aaron Deal discovering it. Wow. Yeah, he's really going to do it justice too. Let's talk about the next one. So we've got William Grant Still, who always, I mean, every time I hear William Grant Still, I just have to stop and listen. You know, some of the old masters, you can have background, you know what's going to be happening, you still love it, it's wonderful. But William Grant Still, you gotta pause and take in what he has written. And this piece is really something. I'll open that up for whoever wants to jump in and talk about that one.
Yeah, I mean, we have been as a community, I would say, in the classical community, really poor at discovering works by lesser known works by amazing American and composers, living composers of diverse backgrounds. And we just do the same repertoire over and over. And this is why Dani and I didn't know the second Rhapsody of Gershwin. And the Omaha Symphony has never played, we don't think, has ever played the second Rhapsody of Gershwin. And the same can be said for William Grant Still. He was, at one point, his Afro-American Symphony was the most performed work by a living composer up to 1950s. And then we just stopped. And we have no excuse as a society for doing that. And one of the pandemic silver linings, I have to be honest about, is that conductors and artistic administrators and musicians had time and purpose-driven approach to researching these composers. And I think we're finally realizing what we've been missing in the American repertoire, standard repertoire. And we're trying to correct that. You can see every major orchestra trying to correct that. And I think it is a very worthy project. It's worth our time and energy to do so. And it's not like we're digging up pieces that are not good. We're digging up pieces that are actual gems and rare diamonds. We're doing a violin concerto on the Jocelyn series later this year that basically it's just as good as any other piece by its time. But the composer is an African American living in Europe, and while played and perfectly storied and well done and well known at the time, got buried over 150 years of us not programming his music. And we're finally getting it back again in the concert hall. And then thank God. I mean, and Dani, you do a lot of this, and a lot of your spare time is looking into this stuff. And the Still was something you discovered with Aaron as well. I just,
we've done a few pieces by him now. We've done, last year we did Mother and Child, and we did Ananga, and I've heard his violin sonatas, and there's something about realizing that a person that you have not taken the time to listen to write some of the most beautiful music from that era or beyond, and you haven't paid attention to him. It's like Ankush said, we are rectifying that now, and this is just a gorgeous but yet very poignant, thoughtful. I feel like there's a question mark at the end, but that's okay. It's like we're just giving, we wanted to give everyone a chance to take a beat. And like you said, Sherry, take a beat and just, you have to stop and pause everything and hear this. And I hope we can keep doing that, because this piece is worth it. It's 8 minutes of like right there.
I'm sad it's only 8 minutes. You mentioned something, Maestro, though, about these pieces just not really being in the standard repertoire. And we saw that too when we were programming. We created a show called the Silent Canon that was hosted by Dr. Anthony Tresek King. He came up with the name. And as soon as he said that, we all went, oh, that's it. Because there's a silent canon out there of all this great music that simply gets passed over. And, the Omaha Symphony, with what you've said, clearly is on the forefront of really bringing a lot of this music to light. And I think our audience is ready for it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Aaron Deal, he has been such a champion of William Grant Still's music, hasn't he?
He's been great, and I'm hoping I'm gonna talk to him tonight and see if he's gonna be willing to talk a little bit about the piece before the audience hears it. Because I think it's one that lends itself to being set up well. It would be helpful. And I will speak about the Adams before the Adams, and John will speak about the Adams before the Adams. And we don't have William Grant Still on a Zoom call, unfortunately, but I think Aaron will do it justice and help the audience walk through what they're about to listen to.
Yeah. Let's go back real quick to a question. I wanted to talk about John Adams again. Living composer. He's the one living composer that will be featured in this program for the weekend. And he's got really a storied career. And you had mentioned previously, Maestro, that he's really our modern day Mozart, our Beethovens, that he is going to be the composer that we'll be listening to on the 200th anniversary of the Omaha Symphony. Can you talk a little bit about who he is and his background?
Yeah, he currently lives in the Bay Area, which is where I grew up, and so he lived and worked in Berkeley and San Francisco, and so he was around kind of one of the more prominent members of a composer camp that we call minimalist composers. And it's very similar to minimalist painters. If you think about a pointillistic painter, that art, and that's really where the word comes from, or at least the description of these composers comes from, because it's more about, like, if you zoomed in, you'd see a bunch of dots. And when you zoom out, you're going to hear all these wonderful colors and start seeing these shapes and seeing these forms. And it's Philip Glass, a minimalist composer, Terry Rise, a minimalist composer,
Steve Reich.
There you go. I knew Steve Reich is a minimalist composer, and these are the people that were really. I say this lovingly. It was a fad back in the 80s, late 70s and 80s, and early 90s, and I loved it. I was here for it. That music completely moves me. It's harmonically driven. The harmonies that John comes up with are phenomenal. It's rhythmically driven. You can't not move around. I mean, you'll see me shaking all sorts of things up there when I'm conducting it. It has a foxtrot feel, but also it's driving. It is purposeful and driving, and you can't not be taken by how he combines his beautiful harmonies with his rhythms, and then you'll stop all of that and just have this like atmospheric. What am I listening to? What world did I just enter? What door did I walk through? And you're like, oh. And he is just a champion of this kind of music. And what he was able to find and download from the heavens and put on paper is something that really speaks to me. And maybe because I grew up around there, maybe because it's just kind of the music I'm into. But I always jokingly say there's not a Brahms piece I don't fall in love with. I've never met a Brahms I don't like. It's kind of my line. And I kind of feel that way about Adams too. Like, I'm always finding something to listen for and enjoy texturally or harmonically in his music. And, there are a lot of people composing at every era. Like, there's a lot of minimalist composers that composed in that era. There are a lot of composers who composed when Mozart was there. There are a lot of people who were doing rock bands and pubs when the Beatles became famous. But we're going to be listening to the Beatles in 100 years, and John Adams in 100 years, and Mozart in 100 years. And we may not be listening to Oasis anymore, even though they're very much a similar band to the Beatles, because John did it first and best, nearly first, and definitely the best.
It's hard. I mean, you're not wrong. It's really hard not to love it. There's something, those moments where, like, you're just so happy you can't keep the poker face on at all. And the moment this piece starts, like, that's, I think, where we all are. It just starts bubbling. And I think when people who say that classical music isn't interesting, I don't think they've heard the right music, or I don't think they've been given something that really, it's like when people say, I don't like cats or I don't like dogs. Like, okay, I don't know which ones you've met.
Yeah,
but
that's wrong. Cats and dogs.
Met the right, yeah, and man, it's so hard not to be happy or to feel just like this ebullient energy going the whole time. I'm looking over at our second bassoonist, our assistant principal bassoonist, Nick Nelson. He's got 16th notes from the get-go, from the very start of this piece. And it's just part of this like delicate bubbling up of everything that's happening. And then when you really get into the chaos, it's so much fun. You don't know how, like, you're in the thick of it and you're like, oh God, it's too late to get back out, but you don't really want to.
And I was going to ask you what it was like for you to play this, but I think you just described it.
Well, I should quote Maestro from rehearsal last night. He wants the bass section to be more like college bros than conservatory trained for some of this, because there's some harmonic motion that we really need to shove into the orchestra's face. And so he turns to us and he goes, basses, trombones, I shouldn't have to ask you to play like bros. Like, that should just be a given. That should just be how you play. Like, you're not wrong.
For that.
I hope I didn't offend anyone.
We worked very hard to play cleanly, but I guess we can toss those 8 years spent at school out the window. That's fine. That's fine.
Just bring it back for the Beethoven. Get a little raucous during the Adams, and then we'll put it back for the Beethoven.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Beethoven. So, I mean, that's after the intermission. Beethoven, his Seventh Symphony. I mean, just the classic. And what did you say earlier, Maestro, about what you're already killing it? I think that was you said that everyone were killers in the symphony.
Yeah, they're all crushing it. I mean, this is a piece.
That's it. Yes.
This is a piece that we've all played for decades, and as conservatory training, maybe in youth orchestra, and certainly at the professional level in summer festivals. But it's different every time, and I'm telling you, it's gonna be different on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it to come to all three concerts, but I'm gonna have fun and making it a little bit different on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's just one of those pieces that there's so much going on. There's so much you can play with. There's so many. It's never the reason why I'm going to interrupt myself. The reason why Beethoven is the classic answer when you ask a conductor who their favorite composer is because there's so many layers to what he's doing, and you see the craftsmanship from the beginning. Not similar to John Adams, not dissimilar to John Adams. I asked him about his compositional process, and that will make the video tomorrow night that we're going to play, but it will make some stuff, some content and nuggets on our social media, and also Symphony Anywhere, which is our online platform. And I think that it's just you could peel away, you could take a Beethoven score and take away the melody, and you'd find a second equally good melody. And you could take the melody away, and you could find a third equally interesting harmonic progression within the violas. You could take away that, and then you're looking at the bass line, and you're like, holy cow, this bass line could be based on this whole symphony could be based on this bass line alone. Mm-hmm. Because he's such a craftsman, and because of all those layers, because how tightly, I mean, it's a fine German engineering. It's like, of course they have BMWs and Mercedes from Germany, because this is the kind of craftsmanship, and it all connects so beautifully, and therefore you can have so much fun with it, and you can bring out this line one time and bring out this line another time, and really make sure the phrase goes this way while it totally interrupts this phrase around it, and it's just like, it's so much fun.
What's it going to be like for you, Dani, to transition from those first three works into the Beethoven Seventh?
Well, like Maestro said, this is a home base piece, but I appreciate that when we come back to this rep, it's not just like, you guys know Beethoven 7, like we'll play it through once, it'll be great for the weekend. We've really been digging into it. Mm-hmm. I was thinking this week, the first time I got to play this piece was when I was 12. And I was in a community orchestra because we didn't have orchestra at school, and they didn't have any bass players in this community orchestra. So I got to be the only bassist and play Beethoven 7. And some parts, so Beethoven and Mozart are similar in that some parts you have the cello and the bass part on the same page, and they do divises so you can see what the other one's doing. But I'd never seen that before because I was 12. And so I thought it was a choose your own adventure moment. And so we get to the second movement, and the cellos have this gorgeous theme. And I was like, well, I don't want to play the bottom line. I want to play the theme. And I remember the conductor had to stop rehearsal and be like, I need you to play the bass part. the part of your instrument. And so I do, now that I'm a grown adult and I know better, I do always love coming back to Beethoven 7, though, because it's like seeing an old friend, where you have the comfort of your hands and your muscles remember how things go, but you have the thrill of doing it with a different group of people in a different night in a different environment, and the energy in the audience is going to be different every time, and it's just lovely. It's hard not to love Beethoven as a bassist.
Yeah.
Or anyone, probably. Trombonists, I think, have a little bit less to say about Beethoven, but that's their own fault.
Well, we know that Maestro Bahl, you'll be new, but are there other innovations, some other things that are going to be happening that people will experience in a new way when they come this weekend?
Dani, you want to take this one?
Yes. Okay, so we are trying, so if you checked in with things that we were doing last season, we started a lot of digital initiatives, which we want to carry through and try different things with. And so on the first half, you're going to see a lot of that in motion. So you're going to see close-ups of the symphony on the big screen in the back of the hall. You're going to actually get a chance to see what Carm is doing. He has all of those clarinet solos. You're going to get to zoom in on Aaron Deal's hands. I mean, there are so many people who they come and they pick their tickets specifically so they can see the pianist's hand, and the rest of the hall is just kind of up Chocolate Creek without a popsicle stick. Well, now that up Chocolate Creek without a popsicle stick people can see Aaron Deal's hands on the big screen. So we're trying things out with this camera equipment, and we have members of our team that have gotten really, really good at operating these robotics. So they're going to be behind the scenes the whole time. We have some surprises in the Gershwin. I think people are going to that's going to really hit home. It's very much about Omaha and the symphony kind of coming together. And Beethoven is going to, we're going to try out all these fantastic things in the first half, and then we're going to treat everyone to some meat and potatoes and Beethoven on the second half. What did I miss?
Well, we're going to capture the Beethoven for our Symphony Anywhere. So if you don't get to see it in live in the concert hall, it's something you're not able to do for any number of reasons this coming weekend, we're going to offer it online. And this is something we also want to continue offering, just major works that the orchestra is going to sound so great on. So for that, the Omaha community, the Western Omaha, Nebraska community, the people who may not want to travel 4 hours, people in Chicago, people in New York, people in LA, they can enjoy what this orchestra brings to the table. And I think that's going to become more ubiquitous and more something that's a part of our DNA. And it's all, again, another COVID silver lining, something that we're getting good at. And I would think that I said this to a board meeting, and I'm like, I think we can all agree that there are innovations that happened during COVID in our industries that we're not going to go back to. We're not going to shy away from going forward. There are things that we did do, and that we don't do now because of COVID that we're not going to go back to. So, this is one of those things. We're not slowing down. We're going to innovate, or else we're going to die as an institution. All art, living art needs to always be living and breathing. Every museum, every Smithsonian, every curator, everyone knows this. We have to keep it moving and keeping it as a living art, or else it becomes a museum art. And we're going to hang pictures of Beethoven on the wall and listen to it as we walk by, and that's it. That's not what we're about. And so we're going to keep the Beethoven alive. We're going to keep it in your home, on your phone, on your tablet. And speaking of those, Dani, can you speak a little bit about our new program books?
Yes, we are going digital. We are embracing a greener future, and part of that is our digital program book. You're going to see all of us front of house this weekend to help you if you are less tech savvy, such as moi. Maybe that doesn't inspire confidence that I will be helping you find a different staff member. I will learn how to do it. No, so you can get your program notes on your phone. And the screen is actually, for our digital program book, the screen is a black background. And so it will not be nearly as distracting as I think some people are worried about. Oh, well, we're going to be on our phone. Our phones are going to be distracting. It's a black background. So actually it's going to blend in really nicely and you'll be able to see the text really well. You can access your program notes there. You can access your bios there. You can learn more about the orchestra. We all got really nice headshots done last year, so you can see everyone up close and personal in our bios. You can learn more about, we have our new assistant conductor, Deanna Tam. You can learn more about her. You can learn what we do, education, community engagement. It's all now in here, which is actually, it's really phenomenal. So we're excited to roll that out this weekend.
Gosh,
I'm really excited about how many trees we're going to save. Honestly, it's one of those things that we all have to be conscious about, whether it's our backstage water bottle situation or our program books. And, I see what goes in the recycling or trash after the New York Phil or any orchestra has 4 programs of the same, and they're putting 2,000 brochures for every performance. And it adds up. So we're going to start and do our part.
And if you are old school and you like having a printed program notes in your hand, just go to our website. On each concert page, we will make sure we will have a PDF that you can print so that you can have that physical copy. It's there, and we're making it available if you really like having the printed version of the notes.
So it's available if needed. Yeah,
it is. We would love for everyone to try the digital, though.
Yeah. And I understand it's also going to be in the Know Before You Go email too that people get. So that'll be really fun. Yeah. Well, this weekend is such an exciting thing. A lot of firsts. And we've talked about Maestro Bahl, about this being your debut with the Omaha Symphony in terms of being the music director. You have conducted there before. And that was a couple of years ago, I believe. But Dani, what's it going to be like for the musicians? This is a brand new era.
Oh, man. Well, it's, first of all, I think we all feel the weight of just being so extraordinarily lucky and grateful that we have been in our hall since last October. We've been playing. We've had you guys with us the whole time. I mean, your support has been constant and unwavering, no matter how this thing has gone the last 18 months. So the fact that we can now come back with no social distant audience and we can be on, I mean, there are 7 basses in our section this week. We've been playing Sibelius with 3. That was really hard. So we can go back to a full orchestra. We can play with stand partners again. We can hear each other and just be a unit. What a gift. What a gift to start off our 101st century, and even more just this idea of having the understanding that it's a gift, going into year 101. So it's not just that we have, new maestro and new goals and a new start. It's I think everyone's very much feeling this joy, which matches our opening season concert. It's joy of being back and welcoming you all back with us.
You know what I love about that is the 100th season, essentially all this big celebration was coming, and then pandemic, Yep. But you've managed to make such a wonderful, positive kind of coming out of it. Mm-hmm. And, I can hear that in what you're saying, Dani, and you as well, Maestro, that it's like, yeah, we're fine. We had the 100th, we turned 100, and now we are celebrating with this new vision, with this new kind of energy moving forward. And how exciting for Omaha. We are really lucky that we have the both of you and the Omaha Symphony to bring us this great music.
Everyone came together so beautifully, and we know how extraordinarily lucky we are to have had all that perfect storm of things work. Yeah. So,
and now that we mentioned the pandemic, I'm sure there's some people out there saying, I really don't want to go out yet. And so what is going to be the protocol for keeping people safe?
You know what? We are just as concerned about your safety and our safety as you are. So we are doing bunch of things to make sure that we can keep this season going strong, keep everyone coming back and enjoying live music, and continue to play on stage. So when you come, masks are required. There's not going to be socially distant in the audience, but please make sure you have a mask that you like, that fits well, that's comfortable. And you'll notice on stage, anyone who does not use their face to play an instrument, so strings, percussion, piano, they're going to have a mask on. And then our winds and our brass players will be wearing masks whenever they have long sections where they're not playing. And we're all masked backstage. So everyone's everyone's doing their part to keep each other safe as much as we can. Maestro will be masked when he's off stage. We did find with conductors, there's a lot of facial expression that's useful to see as an orchestra musician when you're watching the conductor. The rest of us can kind of smize from the eyes up, but you want to be able to see the conductor. So we have like testing protocols in place for our conductors and guest artists. We are checking every box to make sure that we can have as successful of a season as possible.
Will we get to see some of those facial expressions on the big screen, Maestro?
I think you will.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. And I just want to say to our audience, if you do get up and start dancing in the aisle, please keep your mask on. All right. That's just a little note there. Well, final kind of topic for us, looking ahead at the season, we've talked a lot about this weekend, and so exciting. This is going to be a hard question to ask because it's like asking, who's your favorite child? But what's the concert you're most looking forward to in this season?
I can answer that. It is like picking your own favorite child, and I have twin boys, so it's something I've been well trained not to do in public.
Yes.
But I'm really excited about our January Masterworks, Dani. We're doing a piece and it's also, it's bringing in a couple of really great friends of mine that happen to be phenomenal composers and musicians. And so we're starting off that concert with a piece by a dear friend of mine named Adam Schoenberg, who's a living composer writing and teaching in LA. And he wrote a piece that he intended to kind of be an homage to this great Russian work by Modest Mussorgsky called Pictures in an Exhibition. And that's a piece that's pretty familiar with classical music audiences, originally written for piano and then orchestrated for orchestra by Maurice Ravel, a French composer. It's a lovely marriage of this really root Russian pianist who wrote a piece about artwork. I'm talking about the Mussorgsky, married with this lovely French orchestrator, which means that's the person who said what the violin's playing and what the horn's playing and what the oboe's doing. And that marriage comes together so masterfully in the Pictures at an Exhibition, which we're doing on the second half, with a surprise that Dani can speak about. And then the first half is Adam Schoenberg's kind of homage to that piece. He's called Picture Studies. And he went to his local museums and found pictures of artwork that he felt were compelling and wrote several movements on those works. And to his knowledge, no one's ever done. He has a recording where the Kansas City Symphony did both. No, I don't think so. I'm going to take that back. To his knowledge, no one has done both those pieces on the same concert, even though they are companion pieces. And so we're happy to present that to Omaha audiences for the first time. And then in between, our little sandwich is my dear friend Anthony McGill, who's the principal clarinet player of the New York Philharmonic. Has been a dear friend of mine for, nearly 20 years. He happens to be one of the world's best clarinet players, and he's gonna just fill the hall with joy by playing the Mozart Clarinet Concerto for us, and we couldn't be luckier. I think that a concert is gonna be super fun.
So I absolutely agree, and I want to add that the Adam Schoenberg piece was based on works of art in the Nelson Atkins Museum in Kansas City. So I know a lot of people in Omaha love to go down to KC on the weekends and do like weekend trips. And so if you've been to Nelson Atkins, you might have actually seen some of these works before. I have two. I can't help myself. I love everything. So the first is our January Jocelyn concert. And that is when Maestro and I were talking about programming this season, we both agreed that we really wanted to program the concert that was the concert that got canceled and started everything off with when COVID began. So we called it the Missing March program. And So this one is Michael Tilson Thomas's Street Song for brass section. Oh, so good. So like vibrant and just full of life, and so perfectly showing off our phenomenal brass section. We have the Dvorak Wind Serenade, which is sublime in every way and so exciting. We have George Walker's Lyric for Strings, again, gorgeous, hyper romantic, and then Schumann 2, which if you've ever listened to a violin audition, it's just,
and I know everyone in the audience has. Who hasn't?
But who hasn't heard that world famous scherzo excerpt that the violins have? It's one of the hardest things to do, and in rehearsals they were nailing it to the wall, and we didn't get to have this concert, and so we had to do that. So I'm super excited for that. But then our February Masterworks, we're doing Jennifer Higdon's Concerto for 3 with Time for 3, and I love Jennifer Higdon, and any excuse to program her music, especially Time for 3, is they're like the bad boys of classical music. You know, if classical musicians
like bad so.
I mean, Renan wears suspenders. Their bassist wears suspenders. That's how you know he's super cool. Oh God, they're just gonna be so much fun to watch. It's bluegrass, folk, classical, everything mixed in, everything good about like folksy small town Americana. It's good stuff, and that's in February. So I'm just pumped. I'm pumped with everything, but I'm pumped.
And Time for 3 has a special place in my heart. I've known one of the members for a long time, and Nick Kendall, and he lives in the DC area, and I worked with him several times for different things, and he's just basically the Energizer Bunny with the violin in his hand, and he can just, and him and Charles, is that the other violinist? And
yes, I believe so. And then Dani Meier on bass. So Time for 3, 2 violins, bass. They're a trio. They have a lot of works commissioned for them, and this was a concerto written specifically for them. I think actually Joanne Falletta may have been the original.
Danny.
She works. So you're a little bit of you're going to get to see her in just about a month.
Yeah.
Joanne Fletta's, Danny broke up a little bit, but Joanne Fletta is going to be doing our next Masterworks, and she's a great American conductor, which we're very lucky that she agreed to come to us. She's a living maestra, living legend, and I think she did commission Time for 3 and Jennifer Higdon for this work. So it's going to be a ton of fun, and these guys are just lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. What a season. What a season. You know, I could just continue talking to the two of you for hours. I know you have things to do, such as, rehearsal, one more rehearsal for tomorrow night. Anything that we need to let our viewers know before we sign off?
I just really want to reiterate, every time I have the public's ear in any way, that, you may not think the symphony is for you. You may not think the symphony is for your mother-in-law. You may not think the symphony is for your kids or your cousin that's in town, but it is. We're made for the Omaha community. Everything you see on stage is something that we love, and that we can share that love with you. And you don't have to know anything before coming to the concert hall, who is John Adams, Beethoven, or William Grant Still. You don't have to wear anything in particular. You don't have to know when to clap and know anything about classical music. I'm going to hold your hand in the most loving way possible, musically and verbally, and you're going to know what you're listening to in real time, and you're going to love it. And that, I think I've had too many conversations with people, that I meet, grocery store workers or cab drivers or colleagues of my wife in a different field. They're like, well, what is that? What is that? How is that for me? I'm like, it's totally for you. You just don't know it yet. Beethoven is for everyone. He was an everyman's composer, and just don't be afraid to give it a shot. I mean, our tickets are still pretty cheap, and we do that on purpose, so you have a very low barrier of entry into coming into our concert hall. And if you aren't able to come to the Holland, stay tuned. We're going to come to you and your community as well this year.
And I would just add, if you have kids who are in music, just remember, Maestro and I both started off as tiny tots on various instruments, and I had never listened to Beethoven 7 before I got to play it the first time. I'd never listened to Prokofiev or heard Stravinsky or anything like that before. Six. If you're age 6 and up, you can come. But just think about this idea of like, never heard any of that music before I got to play it for the first time, and I just fell in love with it. And if you think about how brave kids can be when they just get handed something like, all right, we're going to try this out. That's the kind of bravery to tap into. It just takes walking through the door. And we are just so excited for anyone who walks through that door to give us a shot, because we love it and we want you to love it as much as we love it. And we'll play our hearts out just for you to give it a shot.
I'll have 2 follow-ups with Dani's story. First of all, having children, you know this intimately, but even if you're walking in the subway or metro or in a public space, a train station, and there's a busker playing, every child 14 and under will stop and be like,
Yeah.
and just want it, crave music, and just want to be around music. And let's not forget that your kids are wet sponges, and they're going to want to hear Beethoven and Mozart and John Adams, and they're not going to think John Adams is any different than Beethoven, because that's the beauty of being youthful and exuberant and open to everything. Something happens later in life where we decide that this is for me, and I only like football on the weekends, I only like fine dining on a Friday night, and I only like reading a book before I go to bed with a glass of wine, and that's fine. You're welcome to in our concert hall. This, just like I said, this is for everyone. You don't know it until you've tried it. And
your Husker marching band, they're playing Orff, they're playing Verdi, they're playing Beethoven. So
yeah,
you've heard
mine
it.
played Lemaire, so mine did Debussy. So it's everywhere.
Yeah, it is. And I would add just a couple of different things too, is that it's a real gift when you expose your kids to a live symphony performance. It is a gift that you give them. And there's nothing I love better. I've sat everywhere in the Holland Center. When you're in back or in front of a row of students and to see their reactions, many times they're just sitting in their chairs, they're leaning forward, and they're as excited as anybody who has been a part of the classical music community for years. Mm-hmm. And, it's just wonderful to see. So that's a real gift. Then the other thing I want to say is, having been there, yes, don't worry about what you have to wear. I think there's that sort of stereotype of, oh, I'm going to have to wear black, and, I'm going to have to. No, I've seen people in jeans. I've seen people in dresses. I've seen people wearing all manner of different things, and everybody is welcome. So just come and try it.
Come as you are.
Yeah.
We're just happy to have you.
Right.
And tickets, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, I've seen flip-flops, T-shirts, whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, as long as you're comfortable and don't get too cold. I think the Holland Center, with their new HVAC system, it filters the air, every 15 minutes entirely, which is also fun for COVID protocols. And I think keeps it a little quite chilly sometimes. So, be careful. Wear your mask and bring a sweater. Layers, right?
That's a good note. Flip-flops and mask, those two things, yes. But tickets are still available at omahasymphony.org. And remember, there are 3 performances, 7:30 on Friday and Saturday, and then 2 p.m., the new performance, 2 p.m. on Sunday. And lots of tickets are available still. Now, if you cannot make it, if you just can't make it, then tune into KVNO and listen to the symphony there. We'll have that live broadcast, and we are so looking forward to it. And it's just going to be a great event. But Maestro Bahl and Dani, I want to thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Thank you so much for having us.
Always nice to chat.
Yeah, it is. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. And just remember that for most of the masterworks, we're going to be having these. So watch Omaha Symphony Facebook or KVNO Facebook. That's where you can see them. And we'll be here. Take care and see you at the Symphony this weekend.